So next we will go on to the next type of grammar, TG grammar, which is actually transformational generative grammar. Okay, and this is again introduced by Noam Chomsky in his book Syntactic Structures in the year 1957. So before we go into what is TG grammar, so far we have seen IC analysis used by structural grammar and phrase structural grammar. So these type of analysis, what type of things they are doing is they analyze the individual sentences to show the functions of their various parts and their relationships. Okay, so when they are analyzing a given sentence, they analyze in order to show the functions of their various parts and their relationships. Okay, so this is what is done by the two types of analysis, that is IC analysis and PSG, phrase structure grammar. So coming to TG grammar, what type of analysis they make is they analyze in such a way to show the relationship between sentences, such as active to passive, affirmative to negative, or declarative to question. So such type of relationships are shown by TG grammar, which was not done by IC analysis and PSG. Okay, so so to elaborate it, no, I mean this TG grammar, they show how different types of sentences are derived from basic sentence, and this basic sentence is actually called as kernel sentence. Okay, so what is actually basic sentences? Mainly these are called as the basic sentence or kernel sentence. Simple sentence, affirmative sentences, active sentences, and declarative sentences, they are actually basic sentences, which is called as kernel sentences. And out of all these kernel sentences, we get or we derive many other sentences. Okay, so how do we derive many other sentences out of the kernel sentences? Is by applying transformational rules or T rules. Okay, so by applying transformational rules or T rules to the kernel sentences, we derive many other types of sentences. Okay, for example, no, I mean from simple sentence we can derive compound and complex sentence. From affirmative we can derive negative sentence. From active we can derive passive sentences. From declarative sentence we can derive questions. Okay, so these are the different types of derivation that can be done by applying transformational rules or T rules. So here is one example where we have the kernel sentence, that is the basic sentence, which is in active voice. Okay, so the sentence is actually put up like this: NP plus auxiliary plus verb plus NP2. It's like a formula only. So how to transform is in order to transform it into passive sentence. Okay, so this is passive sentence where NP2 will be put at the front and followed by auxiliary, and then it's B form and then EN. Okay, you have to add EN, that is past participle of the verb, and then it should follow by the word by, and then this NP1 it will come at the end, so that the active voice is derived into its passive form by applying the T rule. Okay, transformational rule. This is actually transformational rule in order to derive a new sentence out of the basic sentence. Okay, so other types of sentences also derived from the kernel. Maybe sometimes we add something, or we delete something, or we substitute something. Sometimes the whole elements in the sentence are rearranged. So these are the various techniques followed by the T rules or transformational rules in order to derive other type of sentences from the basic sentence, that is kernel sentences. Okay, so these are the important things that you have to remember about TG grammar. So now going in depth about TG grammar. The TG grammar organized in three components. Okay, so what the TG grammar is actually organized in three components. So these are the three components that we have in TG grammar. First one is base component, second one is transformational component, and third one is morphophonemic component. Okay, the base component is actually obligatory meaning must, it must be there. Okay, and transformational component is actually optional. Okay, sometimes you can transform and sometimes it cannot be transformed. Okay, And the third one is morphophonemic, and this is again a obligatory thing, that is it must be there. So these are the three components that we have in TG grammar. And now we'll go to the first one, base component, or it is called as PS component. Okay, so what is actually base component is nothing but the base sentence or the kernel sentence. So using a PS rule or PS component, it generates a sentence underlying a kernel sentence in the form of string of symbols. Okay, so already I told you what is called as kernel sentence, that is a base sentence. Okay, when we are just applying the PS rule, actually we have seen this PS rule in phrase structure grammar, the same phrase structure rule or the rewrite rule that we have seen under PS, no, the same thing is applied here in TG grammar also. Okay, sentence is equal to NP plus VP, and NP1 is equal to N plus N plus determiner. Okay, so N plus determiner, I've left that, and then VP is equal to verb plus NP. Okay, so that is what is written here as main verb. Okay, verb plus NP. So these are the actually PS rule, and the same thing is applied here for the kernel sentence as well. Okay, so this is actually the kernel sentence. So we are applying the PS rule to the kernel sentence. Okay, N plus MV plus determiner plus N. So this is actually the kernel string, and the same thing, no, as we have done in PS thing, I mean using a tree diagram, we have marked the nodes also. The same thing is applied here. So sentence is divided into NP and VP, and NP is equal to N plus actually determiner. Here you can put it as determiner, and then VP is divided into MV and NP, and NP is again divided into determiner and N. Okay, so this is a sentence: Tom chased the elephant. So this is actually it is an obligatory component, meaning that it is a must. Okay, and the second one that we are going to see is actually an optional component, that is transformational component. So what is transformational component is how we transform the kernel sentence into various forms. Okay, so already again we have seen in the previous section itself. So various rules can be applied to the kernel sentence in order to convert the kernel sentence into various other forms of sentences. Okay, so in order to derive sentences out of kernel sentence, they are giving two sets of T rules. So one is actually optional T rules that may apply, and the second one is obligatory T rules that must apply. Okay, and apart from that, you have singularity transformations and generalized or double base transformations. Okay, so when you're talking about singularity transformations, it is operated on one terminal string. Okay, meaning within one string the kernel sentence will be converted or transformed into its derived form. Okay, in generalized or double base, it combines two or more terminal strings, meaning that we cannot convert the kernel sentence just within a single string, meaning we have to go to step 2, step 3. In that way it will go on. That is actually generalized or double base. Okay, so apart from that, no, when you're talking about singularity transformations, you have optional as well as obligatory. Optional meaning that if you want, you can apply that rule, otherwise you can ignore. And sometimes it will be obligatory, meaning you must apply the rule. Okay, so all this when we are looking into the examples, it will be clear for you. So already we have seen how active voice is converted into passive by using a formula. Okay, so and apart from that, there are also specific order to be followed in the T rules. So for example, if you want to create or derive interrogative sentences, no, yes or no questions, the first step that you have to follow is you have to convert the kernel sentence into its interrogative form. Okay, and then you have to affix switch. Okay, so the affix has to be switched meaning the place has to be changed. So these are the two steps that you have to follow in order to derive yes or no questions. And if you are talking about the WH questions, so these are the steps that you have to follow. First, you have to convert the kernel sentence into its interrogative, and then you have to apply do support rule, and the third step is you have to switch the affix. So these are the various steps that you have to follow in order to derive the different sentence out of the kernel sentence. Okay, so all this will appear confusing once you get into the example sentences. No, only then you will be able to understand better. And looking into the third component, that is morphophonemic, it is nothing much to complicate here. So morphophonemic component is nothing but it is again an obligatory. Okay, it is a must component where we are just putting all the symbols in the form of spelling. Okay, in the form of utterance. So this is the final string, terminal string that we have got out of various steps of transformation. And at last, what you are doing in morphophonemic component is you will be converting the string into its proper utterance. Okay, what we have in the string is determiner plus n plus v plus adjective. So now determiner meaning the, and noun meaning girl, and verb meaning is, and adjective meaning clever. So this is the last component and this is an obligatory component. Okay,